Deborah Spark is a writer who lives in Maine, who also teaches writing at Colby College. She's written about food, travel, all kinds of things, and she is now out with her 5th novel. It's called Discipline, and she's with us here on 207. Thanks so much for coming in. It's good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
What's interesting about this work of fiction is that it actually started out as a work of nonfiction. You wanted to write a book, in part, about Preble Street, which provides services for the homeless in Portland. How did you suddenly go down a different path?
Two things. One, I wasn't doing a very good job of writing that book. I was sort of blocked. I was having trouble writing it, but also a man there told me a really interesting story. He had said he was adopted by a very famous painter who summered here in Maine and elaborated on that. And then I went home and sort of Googled, and I think I found him, I'm not sure, and I think it was a story about him running from the law and actually burning 2 paintings by the side of the road by this famous painter. And then I also, around the same time, was giving a reading in Bridgeton at the library, and someone asked me a question about what I was working on, and that led to her starting to talk about someone she knew who she thought had died at Preble Street of an overdose. I'm not sure that's where the woman had died, but she did indeed die of an overdose. And that led her to telling me about the Elan School. And once she told me about the Elan School, which I did not know about.
All right, that's a different element that got incorporated into the book, again, in a fictional way. But the Elan School was a real place in Poland, Maine. It was for troubled adolescents, and it was a very controversial place. What made you want to bring that into the mix?
Well, both the Elan School story and the story from the homeless man were sort of down and out stories in many ways, but they also had to do with art. And I was trying to write a sort of have-not novel. Eventually, that's what the nonfiction book about Preble Street became, a sort of art mystery. And I think once I added art to the mix, I could write something. I was struggling before that, and the woman who had died actually had been an artist.
So it starts out as a nonfiction account of Preble Street. You add in the element of the Elan School in Poland. You also have 3 paintings that are missing. It sounds like you must be a really gifted literary juggler, because you got an awful lot of things that you're keeping in the air here.
Yes, yeah. It has 3 different narrative lines that get braided together, and I think at first you're not quite sure how they connect, but by the end they do connect.
You teach fiction writing at Colby College. What's it like for you, as someone who knows how this works? What's it like when you then get into trouble, when you're telling a book and all of a sudden, boom, you've hit a dead end, or you've just looked at the last 40 pages you wrote and they're not very good? What do you tell yourself?
Well, in terms of the nonfiction one, I said, you don't have to do your homework anymore. In some ways, I let myself off the hook. In terms of a fiction project that I know I want to work on, I just go back and back and back and revise.
Just rewrite. Mm-hmm. You talked to students who attended the Elan School. You interviewed them. This is not something that one needs to do for a work of fiction, for an imaginative work. Why did you do that?
Well, for similitude, in part, but also to be inspired. If I didn't know about what it was like to go to a school like that, I didn't think I could write very honestly about it.
Which for you is more gratifying? You write a lot of nonfiction. This, as we said, is your 5th novel, and you've also written collections of short stories. Which is more gratifying for you, fiction or nonfiction?
I hate to say right now I'm really in nonfiction mode. I really like research. I like interviewing people, actually, and I like learning new things. So when my fiction can let me do that, I like that. And right now I'm actually working on a nonfiction project, and part of what I like about it is the interviewing. One
of the things that I like is learning things when I talk to people. And as I was preparing for this interview, I learned that your literary agent now is a student whom you taught at Colby.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I had a different agent and it wasn't working out. And when I went out, again, looking, I thought, well, I don't know. I'm putting her in a position by asking her. She might want to turn me down. But it's been wonderful. I know she's smart, so that's nice. She was a wonderful student. And it's very interesting to have a former student as an agent.
I would think that would be pretty neat and rather unusual. The name of the book is Discipline by Deborah Spark. Deborah, thanks so much for coming in here. We appreciate it. We should mention that Deborah's going to be making appearances around Maine, South Portland, Farmington, lots of different places. You'll find the list by going to the link that we have in the 207 section of our website or app. More information about her and about her novel. Stay with us. Back in a moment.